Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Good morning to Time Lapse Limited over on Instagram. Am I moving double fast? Is that how watching from Time Lapse Limited works? I don't know. Morning, everyone. How are you doing? Yeah, you turn your back for a weekend of rest and recuperation, and an orange lunatic in a White House plunges the world into yet another unwinnable conflict in the Middle East. Cheers for that, Donald. Cheers for that. And I know there was a bit of discussion about this over on the WhatsApp group over the weekend. Will this impact the UK? Yeah, absolutely will. We have been the Americans' puppet for many, many years, and that's the way it works. They go to war, we go with them. That's the way it works. And even if that doesn't end up being the case, even if we don't end up with troops on the ground, you can guarantee that we will suffer the fallout in some way or another. What is it with the Americans and wars in the Middle East? And why are they so very bad at them? Yeah, kind of a clumsy segue, but that kind of leads us into today's morning monologue. Today's morning monologue is called "This Is Not Normal." I've been reading, watching, absorbing, I guess, lots of stuff on the notion of normalization. And basically, normalization is where, something that you would have once considered ridiculous, outlandish, unacceptable, over a period of time just becomes accepted and becomes the norm. Obviously, this will be related to the industry in which we work. And when you think about it, there is an awful lot within our industry that has been normalized over the years. So we'll be talking about that in the morning monologue today. Loads of other stuff to get through as well. So I tell you what, why don't we start the show without further ado? Let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. I'll tell you what's in the show in just a second, but I've got a few hellos and other things that I'd like to say. So first of all, I'm going to say I'm in the wrong place. Where are we? There we go. It is happy anniversary to Mr. and Mrs. Muirhead. 24 years today. Congratulations, guys. And I'm going to leave the confetti up because we don't get to see Kerry Jones all the time. And when he returns, it's always welcome. Good morning to you, Kerry. And I'll tell you what, it's always good when Jim Turner turns up, so we're going to keep him up as well. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your confetti. I'm going to take that away. I'm going to take that away as well. Well, I'm going to say good morning to Dan Cullen. I'm going to have to speak very clearly today because as far as I know, Dan is only listening. He's not watching. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Probably just delivering Christine breakfast in bed because you know what he's like. And good morning to Mark Whiting. Good morning to Kerry Jones. Good morning to Ken Hatcher, Jim Turner, anybody else that's there as well. It is Monday, the 23rd of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. The Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. I feel like I need a third job title. If anyone has got anything they'd like to suggest, keep it clean, people. I'd be very grateful. In today's show, we're going to prove to you that the Hitachi Landcros is more than just a prototype excavator. East Coast Demolition, our friend Ricky Webb, is tackling Delaware silos. Picking up sticks, not an easy job unless you've got an Engcon finger grab, in which case it's a piece of cake. And in our latest look back at the European Demolition Association study tour of Italy, we're basically talking remote control with CGT and Caterpillar. All that's to come. Plus, in my morning monologue, as I've already said, this is not normal. I mean, this is not normal, but I mean the industry. There's a lot in the industry that is not normal. No mystery machine yet again today, but we do have a question of the day. I've already posted it, but I'm going to post it again using this. Yeah, our question for the day today comes 99% from Gary Muirhead. Gary's question was, if you were going to be stuck on a desert island, which member of your family would you most like to be stuck with? And I looked at that and I thought, well, that's fine and dandy, but we don't know most of the members of your family. So I've widened it out a bit. So it is literally a case of, if you were stuck on a desert island, who, famous or otherwise, who would you like to be stuck with? Now, to my mind, there are several obvious choices. My first thought was my wife. But I do know that sooner or later she would find some way of telling me that being stranded would be my fault. Because that's what married life is like. Bear Grylls sprang immediately to mind. He could probably keep us both alive, but only if I didn't murder him in his sleep for his endless positivity. So I've given it a lot of thought. I say a lot of thought. I gave it about 10 minutes thought, and after much consideration, if I'm going to be stuck on a desert island, I'm going with Kate Winslet. Yeah, obviously she has some experience of being shipwrecked, so that might come in handy. And let's face it, she's Kate Winslet. Very, very easy on the eye. It'd take me a long while to get bored of being stuck on a desert island with Kate Winslet. But what about you? If you're going to be stranded somewhere on a desert island, who would you most like to be stranded with? Let us know in the chat. And we're going to start the show right about, that's the wrong button, right about now. Ken Hatter is suggesting that he'd like to be stuck on the desert island with Amanda Holden. Isn't it? Should we just take a moment on Amanda Holden? I remember Amanda Holden when she was married to Les Dennis, and she was, quite attractive. Could never understand quite how Les Dennis had managed to land like a fish, land Amanda Holden. The older she gets, the hotter she seems to get. Or is that just me? Am I aging and therefore lowering my standards? Or is Amanda Holden actually getting hotter with each passing year? Ken, I can see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree. I'm sticking with Kate Winslet, but I do know exactly what you're saying. So, if you were watching our coverage of Bauma, and if you were watching anybody's coverage of Bauma, you will know that the fine folks at Hitachi unveiled a Landcros 1. It was a prototype excavator with drone landing strip on the rear of the machine. Yeah, it's all fancy schmancy stuff. But they were very keen to point out, were Hitachi, that there is much more to the whole Landcros concept than just a single prototype machine. This is kind of like a new operating platform, and they've revealed more, and I'm going to show it to you right now.
Working in construction, it's complex. At Hitachi, we are dedicated to finding ways of nurturing technology to make your life easier, using data to simplify the complexity and boost your productivity. Introducing Landcros Connect, your all-in-one fleet management platform, providing instant access to performance data on Hitachi construction machinery and other brands of equipment. Gain a complete overview of your fleet. Generate custom reports on key metrics such as idling time, fuel consumption, or CO2 emissions. You can create geofences to analyze productivity, group your equipment per project, and get usage information per worksite. Available in 24 languages, Landcros Connect offers easy access to alerts, custom reports, and a KPI dashboard.
I work as a fleet manager and we operate different brands. What I like is that with one click, I can get an overview of the operating status for each and every machine that we work with, regardless the brand. And also with a few clicks, I can generate a report, and this report gives me insights how to optimize the fleet efficiency.
I'm a project manager, and I use Landcros Connect to filter the data I need. I use the project and worksite and geofencing features to help simplify reports for specific job sites. I can view when machine idling exceeds a certain threshold, and I can track their performance so I can optimize utilization for ultimate productivity.
At our rental company, we need a lot of operational data. Landcros Connect helps us to get this done. With Landcros and the software system, we get a lot of information about the machines. We can create a project per customer, and we can monitor machine operational data and see what the machine usage is like. With all the alerts and notifications we get from the software, we can take action instantly, and that minimizes downtime and leads to happy customers.
I'm a site manager, and fleet management systems are a part of our daily routine. It seamlessly connects with other applications like Consite for detailed oil analysis. It uses API integration to enhance operational workflows. It's easy to access the deeper critical system data, so you can make more informed decisions and make better reports.
Landcros Connect, fleet management platform. Solutions beyond machinery. Sign up for a demo or get your license today.
Right, loads of stuff to get through here. I'm going to say good morning to Birgit Post 29, who's just said hello, or said good morning actually, over on Instagram. Good morning. Whereabouts are you, Birgit? Birgit sounds to me like a Danish or a Norwegian name. I don't know. Whereabouts are you in the world? What brings you here? Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, there is a thing going on at the moment. Liebherr is organising what they've referred to as the Game of Cranes. There's basically a global search for the biggest and the best crane operator. I realise that's kind of foreign to all of us, but Tristan Mays is taking part. He's also put together a very humble and self-effacing video to go with it. Now, Tristan, I want to tell you this because you need to know this. Over the weekend, I voted several times, but I've also prompted all of the members of our WhatsApp group to vote as well. Dan Cullen very kindly picked up the baton on that, and he has been sending your details through his various WhatsApp groups to get people to vote as well. So hopefully you have seen a bit of an upsurge in the number of people that have voted for you. I don't even know if you can see that, but we're doing that. But also, I've just posted the details if you want to vote for Tristan Mays, and frankly, why wouldn't you? It would be the least politically correct win of, well, in history, possibly. So if you'd like to vote, the details are in the chat. Please, 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 please go and do that. Tristan just said, love you, Mark. You are the best, mate. And so is Dan. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Now, here's a thing. We've had a message here from a guy called Zuyan Du, who says, we are Yuchai from China, the earliest mini excavator company. Are you really? I mean, I accept the fact that you are from Yuchai, but were Yuchai the earliest mini excavator company? My understanding was that was a Japanese company, not a Chinese company. Were you the first in the world, or were you the first in China? That's what I'd like to know. But Zuyan Du, thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, going back to our question of the day. Our question of the day is, who would you most like to be stranded on a desert island with? I was already in agreement with Ken Hatcher on his suggestion of Amanda Holden. I'm even more in agreement with this one. I'd like to be stuck with Kate Beckinsale, particularly if she'd bring the underworld outfit, you know, the leather all-in-one. Oh, dear. But if she's not available, apparently, Dan is also going for Anastasia, absolutely right. And Dan has just said, "How is the voting going?" I'm going to ask Tristan, "How is the voting going? Can you even see it?" I'd love to think that you can. I'd like to see think the numbers are coming up. But if you can, let us know. If not, we'll take that. And our friend from China has just posted details of where you can find Yuchai as well. So thank you very much indeed for that. How can I contact you? You can contact me here, or just go to demolitionnews.com. I tell you what, let me just I've just posted the details of my website in the post in the chat there. Zuyan Du, I'm never sure with Chinese and Korean names. Are you Zuyan Du or are you Du Yuzan? I've never figured that out. But if you go to demolitionnews.com, go to the contact area, you'll find my details. And thank you for being here. Speaking of demolition, we've got a bit of that in just a moment from our friend Ricky Webb over East Coast Demolition in the States. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I've already keyed this one up. You know Ricky Webb, you know East Coast Demolition. We've featured them here often enough. This is them in Delaware, taking down some silos. Enjoy. Sorry, distracted by Chris Ford's comment on our question of the day, which was that. Chris today, he wants the impossible to join him on a desert island. A woman who didn't moan, was the best cook in the world, and saw to his every need. Good luck with that. I think on the balance of everything, I think you're probably better off staying at home and not ending up on a desert island, to be honest. Dan says they're one hell of a company. They really are. Dan also reckons they're going to be inundated with sales messages. That's what the spam filter is all about. So not a problem at all. But yeah, I'm going to go and find out a little bit more about Chai, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and see what the score is with them. Can't remember if we featured them here or not, but I'll certainly be taking a look. We're back in just a moment. Picking up sticks. Honestly.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
This is a subject we touch on quite a bit, but thanks for sharing this, Dan. I didn't see this. He says, did you see WM Plant refurbished a CAT 345 long reach, 12,000 hours, and they say it was 45% cheaper than new. Wow, that is quite the saving. Where did you see that, Dan? Is that a Facebook thing? Is that a TikTok thing? Let us know. I'd love to go and have a look at that. Please keep us posted. Picking up sticks, Engcon style, like this. Let's have a look. Dan reckons that this business about WM Plant was actually on Construction News. I think it was a whole page. I'll go and have a look at that. And Dan also says grapple be handy for some demolition jobs too. Yeah, absolutely. Not sure about what the wear capabilities are. Very good for bits of sticks and twigs and branches. Would it be okay on something a bit tougher? Concrete, steel? Don't know the answer, but yeah, good point, Dan. We're going back to Italy in just a moment. To recap on my study tour of Italy. Bizarrely, I think this will be about the third or possibly the fourth time we featured Caterpillar and CGT. There was a lot to see. I'll be back after this. Our friends at Caterpillar do love an acronym. There's an initial for everything. Back in the day when I used to do PR work for Caterpillar, things like they don't refer to dozers. They have track-type tractors, which was always shortened to TTT, track-type tractors. Track-type loaders are like the Cat 953. That was a TTL. Hydraulic excavators were HEX, HEX. Learned two new ones while I was over in Italy. LOS, line of sight, and NLOS, non-line of sight. Basically, two forms of remote control. Now, line of sight is where you're wearing a harness. In this instance, you'll see the guy's got it over one shoulder. You've got your joysticks in front of you. You're basically operating the machine, but you're line of sight. You can see the machine can see you. You're right up close and personal. Non-line of sight is where you are operating effectively what looks like a simulator, which I guess it is, but you're operating that from a remote standpoint. So either in a site cabin or possibly even further afield. So LOS, NLOS, line of sight, non-line of sight. This is a quick look at that. Probably should have pointed this out in advance because it did look a bit sketchy. The first operator you saw with the non-line of sight, not an operator at all. Not an operator at all. He was brought in specifically to prove that basically anyone could drive it. They could have asked me to do that because I could have proved that very well. But the second operator, who you saw was operating the thing very, very smoothly, that was Ryan Priestley of Priestley Demolition of Canada. Obviously, one of our favourite demolition contractors in the world. Ryan Priestley got behind the controls, smooth as silk. Took to it like a duck to water, he did. Very impressive stuff. Gary Muirhead. You see, Gary, I've got so much to say right now. So, stuck on a desert island with Sam Fox and her puppies. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Sam Fox has had her head turned. Now back to the other side. I think. Well, to put it in a very subtle way, Gary, I think your good lady Christine has got a better chance with Sam Fox these days than you have. Just saying. But this does give me an ideal opportunity. If you've heard this story before, please tell me to stop because I don't want to bore you. But years ago, and I do mean many, many years ago, was I married? I don't think I was. Anyway, back in the very late 80s, I would guess. I did a trip, oddly enough, bizarrely, given what we've just seen, to Italy. Jumped on the plane on the way back, and who was on the plane with me? Samantha Fox. She of the Page 3 fame and, as Gary very subtly says, the puppies, okay? I have now been married for 35 years. I've been with my wife for 40 years, I guess. 41 years, actually. And in all that time, now bearing in mind how much I used to travel for work, she has only ever picked me up from the airport once in 41 years. On the one occasion that she did choose to pick me up from the airport, I came through the sliding doors, chatting away to Samantha Fox. I really did. That's absolutely true. You can ask my good lady wife. Several things. First of all, at the time, she had like pink in her hair. She's about that big, tiny. I mean, my wife is 4'11". Sam Fox is about the same size, height-wise. Their proportions differ somewhat elsewhere, but even my wife, who is as straight as a die. When I came over and said, "Oh, you see that? I was with Sam Fox," and my wife was, "Yes." Put your tongue back in your head. But even my wife had to say, "She really is absolutely gorgeous." Yeah, absolutely. And there we are. Me and Sam Fox, like that we were for about a minute. And Gary, she is the hottest. Back in the day. Anyway, people, enough of that sexist nonsense. That's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my first morning monologue of the week. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very, very soon. Tomorrow would be good. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return forthwith after this. At the height of the COVID-19 crisis, a new phrase crept into the English language. The wearing of face masks, social distancing, and checking the TV each night to find out how many of our fellow countrymen had died that day was, we were told, the new normal, even though there was nothing even remotely normal about any of it. Thought I was going to sneeze? It's gone. This is what normalization looks like. Ideas, behaviors, or conditions that once felt unacceptable or dangerous gradually come to be seen as routine, normal, or no longer worth questioning. And that normalization is not exclusive to pandemics, politics, and TV news reports. It's very much alive and unwell in the demolition and construction sector too. You stand on a demolition or construction site in Britain, and what's become routine here is nothing short of shocking. 51 of your colleagues died in accidents last year. 51 of our brothers and sisters gone forever. One death, one death roughly every week, right here on sites that should feel secure, sites that are supposed to be protected by systems and training developed over the course of decades. Yet somehow that's what we've come to expect. But this is not normal. But accidents aren't the only killers lurking among us. Every year, more than 5,000 people die from asbestos-related diseases. 2,257 deaths from mesothelioma alone in 2022, and nearly as many from lung cancer and asbestosis. Asbestos doesn't announce itself. It kills silently, slowly, decade after decade, and we're still working amongst it, still dying from it. That is not normal. More than 4,000 construction firms collapsed across the UK last year. Thousands of job loss, supply chains broken, work abandoned. You'd expect those collapses to shock us, but they barely register. Just as soon as another company goes pop, which they inevitably will, we shrug and we move on. This is not normal. Less than 15% of our workers are women. Ours is a workforce built on exclusion and tradition, not talent or fairness. We all know the stories, the job site where she didn't fit, where she had to prove herself repeatedly just to stand her ground, the site where she was harassed to breaking point. Yet we treat that as business as usual. That is not normal. And what about job security? One day you're on the payroll, the next you're off-hired, with no warning, no fallback, no pay, no decent notice, no mental health safety net, no dignity. And again, we shrug. This is not normal. And then there's the blink and you miss it sinkholes of budget and time. Every project is delayed, every bill inflated. Our promises begin to look like fiction. We accept overruns as the norm. We don't even flinch anymore. This is not normal. Instances of corruption and collusion make their headlines on a regular basis. Brown envelopes being traded to secure demolition and construction projects. Backhanders being exchanged to ensure that certain labour supply companies are the go-to for a specific project. It's nothing new, and it certainly doesn't come as any surprise when it's uncovered. But this too is not normal. There's another lie we're living, not admitting that the despair here goes deeper still. The suicide rate among demolition and construction workers is almost 4 times the national average. That's nearly 2 of your colleagues taking their own lives every single week. That is not normal. So here we are, normalising death, disease, failure, inequality, insecurity, inefficiency, and despair. Layer upon layer of disaster we've accepted as everyday life. We look at this list and we say, well, that's how things are. But guess what? That's not how things should be. This is not normal. When you clock in today, when you walk that site, remember the reality beneath the noise, the bodies, the broken hearts, the families who never get to spend Sunday together again, the invisible killers, the companies that vanish, the exclusions, the desperation, and the broken promises. It's not normal. When a worker dies falling from height and we barely blink, we've lost the plot. We've lost the meaning of the word normal. When a disease takes lives decades later and we carry on regardless, something's gone wrong. When businesses crumble and families are scattered, we pretend it's just the economy, but it's not. When women remain on the margins, uncounted and undervalued, this is not normal. Every time a budget balloons, every time a deadline drifts, we rationalise it as part of the game. We've come to accept it. But this is not normal. This is not normal, or it shouldn't be. Not in this day and age, not in our lifetimes, not on our watch, not while we're here. Normal is what we make it, not what we're told it is. And accepting anything else merely compounds the tragedy. There you are. Coming from a guy that looks like this is not normal. But yeah, there you are. Normalisation. There you are. Peter McKenna, hashtag not normal. Yeah, listen, do you know what? I may even start borrowing that. I'm not going to say I'm going to steal it outright, but I might start borrowing that because, yeah, that's where we are. You think about when I started the show today talking about all that's going on in America and Iran and everything else, and we go, you know, America has declared war on a bunch of people, and we've just decided, yeah, it's, you know, that's normal. ICE agents in America are rounding up people they don't like the look of. Yeah, that's normal. It's not. It really isn't. And the one that I mean, there was Billy that stuck out for me there, but the one that really stuck out was how desensitized we became last year, and it's still going on today, but particularly last year, how desensitized and numb we became to companies going out of business. You know, we all stop and take note when Carillion or ISG go because they're so huge. But 4,000 companies. 4,000 companies in the space of 12 months just gone. And when you think about the impact upon the founders, the directors, the employees, their supply chain, whoever they were working for, you know, just repercussion upon repercussion upon repercussion. And even with like an ISG went pop and it's, oh, Jesus, look, ISG, we learned nothing from Carillion. And then somebody else went a week later and ISG was suddenly forgotten and we're all on to something else. It really is not normal. It really isn't. And maybe I'm not going to be stealing the not normal hashtag because it's just been copyrighted. I'll play Peter. I may nick it anyway. But yeah, you think about all the stuff that we've come to accept as normal. And now, Dan Cullen, for example, Dan Cullen is on a new job today. And Dan has had a fair few jobs since this show started over the past 5 and a bit years. That's not normal. Now, you know, I mean, I've never worked with Dan. I speak to him pretty much daily. I've never worked with Dan. He might be impossible to work with. I don't believe that to be the case, but he might be impossible to work with. But the absolute truth is that people, staff, workers in this industry are picked up and put down without a moment's hesitation. You know, you have some people in some other industries, some other sectors, job for life. Yes, they might start sweeping the floor, but by the end of it, they're the managing director, and they've gone through all the various things in between, all the various job roles and promotions in between. This industry, you're with one company on a Monday, you could be with another company on a Thursday, you could be with yet another company come the following Tuesday. You're picked up and put down. That is not normal. That is not how you build a loyal and reliable workforce. And on that same subject, I often spill over into football analogies. One of the reasons that international football teams are never as good as the sum of their parts, even at the height of Manchester United's dominance of British football, you know, we had a lot of their players in the England team: David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, all of them fantastic players. But the reason they never rose to the heights that for England that they did for Manchester United was they only got to play with their other fellow players, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, again, very, very good players, but they only got to play with them every once in a while. If you are an excavator operator, you know how to orchestrate things in the way that you want. You want the trucks there, you're the dumper there, and the the loading there. You know this better than I do, but you know exactly how you want it. If you are working constantly with the same people, like a Manchester United, if you're with the same company for a prolonged period of time, all of that becomes second nature, not just to you, but to those that work with you. The guy that jumps on the ADT or the dumper knows that Dan or Jim or Gary or whatever put the machine there or put the dumper or dump truck there. That's where it's loaded, and then we go off that way because somebody else is coming in the up. You know all of that. It becomes second nature. If you are forever switching jobs and switching companies and switching sites and switching applications, you don't get that. You don't get that second nature understanding. You don't get that basically understanding. You just don't get that. So every time Dan goes to a new employer, he basically has to reteach and relearn. You've still got to understand, the foibles of the people that are working around you. You've got to understand that. So rather than a learning curve that does that over a course of 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, your learning curve, if you're constantly changing jobs, is that. You're up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. Gary Muirhead says, headline news today, fish and chip shop paper tomorrow. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that is the very thing that spawns normalization. And I also think volume as well. If site fatalities only happened once or twice a year, when they came along, there would be shock and outrage and horror and disgust and despair. Because they happen with such frequency, we've become attuned to it. Same as asbestos deaths, same as suicide deaths. They are so frequent that we've become normalized to it. Insolvencies. Yes, you might be shocked by Carillion. Yes, you might be shocked by ISG. But when you get to the end of 2024 and you've seen basically the same headline 4,000 plus times, only the names of the companies have changed. At that point, you just, it's another one. It's another one. That's not normal. That's not how business is supposed to work. That's not how people are supposed to be employed. That's not how people are supposed to survive into their 80s and 90s. What do we got down here? Peter McKenna says, knuckle down to it, bite your lip, and you have more chance of surviving nowadays. Yeah, you do. But even then, I mean, even that, there's a thing that's not normal. Back in the day, and I'm not going back that far, I know I'm knocking on a bit, but not going back that far. If you worked on a demolition or construction company and as Peter rightly said, you keep your nose clean and everything else, you're probably there for the long haul. So long as you don't upset anyone, you don't complain too much about the conditions, you turn up on time, you leave on time, you're just a generally reliable worker. Back in the day, that would have been good enough to protect you for the long haul. It's not now. It's not now. I mean, workers are now seen in very much the same way as hired equipment. We need it for 6 weeks. After that, no, piss it off. We don't need it anymore. Those are people. And we've all... I'm going to do a bit of a detour here. And I don't know how I'll bring it back, but bear with me. There is a purpose to this. If you went back, off the top of my head, 10, maybe 15 years, I used to go shopping with my other half, be it for groceries or clothing or whatever it might be. We'd pop, I live very close to Epsom Town Centre, so that was our shopping destination. And we'd go to Epsom and we'd go to the Waitrose or the Marks and Spencers or the Sainsbury's or whatever it might be, or we'd go into the Next or whatever. But we'd go there, we'd park, we'd go and buy what we needed, we'd jump in the car and we'd go home. Now, if we go to Epsom, we park the car and we immediately go to Costa Coffee or Starbucks. So that has become normalised. You can't go shopping now without a cup of coffee. What has also become normalised is, go back to the same 10, 15 years. If I used to go, I wasn't much of a coffee drinker back then, but if I did, you go to your local cafe and you'd pay, £1 for a cup of coffee? And then somehow, somewhere along the line, we decided not only did we need a cup of coffee, we needed a bucket of coffee that had very little coffee in it. And rather than costing us £1, it was £3.50. And we normalised that. we decided, yes, that is the cost of a cup of coffee, £3.50. We normalise that. Going even further, I was actually talking about this to a friend of mine. When I first started working in a publishing office, I was a bus journey away. There was limited parking, so there's no point in me driving. So I used to get the bus to work. Get up in the morning, have a cup of tea, jump on the bus, go to work, sit at my desk. Then about 10:30, go to the vending machine, get myself a cup of coffee, kickstart the heart, get the job going. Nowadays, nobody seems to be able to go from their home or to their place of work without a cup of coffee or a bottle of water, often both. Just how dehydrated are you likely to become on a 12-minute bus journey? Are you suddenly going to be struck down like a prune, become desiccated on a 12-minute journey? Are you and yet that is normalised. We now live in a world where when you leave home, just to prove the point, there's one on my desk. There's my EDA water bottle there. Why? We normalised it. Dan says, this industry is not normal anymore. Not normal to get involved in something that doesn't involve you. Peter says, from 2010 to 2019, there were 6,005 fatal accidents in China's construction industry, causing 7,275 deaths. Not normal. And I mean, I'm not going to try and do the maths, but what are we here in the UK now? 80 million people? Thereabouts. What are they in China? 1.4, 1.5 billion? It's, 7,000 sounds awfully shocking over the period of 9 years. But if you divided that by however many to bring it down to, to set it on a level, are we that much different? Are we that much better? I'm guessing probably not. Chris Ford says, you're not as tight as me. I refuse to pay silly money for a cup of coffee. You know what? So do I now. So do I. To the point where I deliberately, it's almost like a one-man protest. Starbucks will not know about this. And it's nothing to do with their kind of lax attitude towards paying tax. It's not down to being tight. It's just, literally, when did that become a thing? When did we just accept, I am now in a high street, first thing, coffee? I'm pretty sure I can make it through a whole day, shopping or otherwise, without a cup of coffee. And yet it has become normalised. Another thing. Obviously, we're speaking on the weekend after our friend Mr. Trump, and I use the term friend advisedly. He has become the latest in a very, very long line of American presidents who have declared war in the Middle East. That's not normal. Declaring war is not normal. Look at the way that politicians act these days. You go back to the old school question time with, was it Robin Day was the presenter? He'd ask a politician a question and he'd put them on the spot, and they'd gulp and they'd swallow and but by and large, if he persisted, they would give him a good answer. Or they'd give him an answer. Might not be the one he wanted, might not be the one they wanted, but they would give him an answer. Now, the way that political discourse has become is, I will ask you this question, but you, the politician, will tell me what you've already prepared. Are you expecting to put ground troops are you planning to put troops on the ground in Iran? Well, you have to understand that this was an important thing because Iran was on the verge of developing nuclear weapons and blah, blah, blah. That's not what I asked you. And yet that too has become normalised. We just accept the fact that our politicians will lie or dally in obfuscation to avoid saying what really needs to be said. And we accept that. We accept the fact that leaders in this industry say very, very nice and well-meaning things about mental health, about gender imbalance, about sustainability, when we all know they are actually doing the total opposite of those things. Peter McKenna says the UK has one of the lowest accident rates in the construction industry globally, with around 1 in 42 workers experiencing an injury. Which, that's pretty good. And, if you're going to compare us to other countries, that's good. But that doesn't actually help the person who is that 1 in 42. I mean, I've reported this morning on a guy who fell through a roof working for an NFDC member company up in Aberdeen, fell through a roof, was a keen sportsman, now is unable to do any of that. Now, thankfully, he survived, but, he is permanently injured by that. Normalised. I've reported on that today. I may well report on another injury or fatality later today or later this week. And that guy and his injuries and his, his limited future life will be forgotten, and we'll move on to the next thing. Dan says, it's the same. I stop in Nero for a coffee, $4.95 for a cup of coffee. Nah, sorry, I'm out. There's no way. Particularly when I'm a man with a, I'd like to say I have a fairly refined palate, but if I want a cup of coffee, there's a caff down the road here, does a cup of instant coffee, a frothy job for about £1. Rather go there. Generally because Costa Coffee doesn't do particularly good bacon rolls, and the Broadway Cafe where I live really does. Normalisation, £4. We're talking about a fiver here. And listen, I'm not trying to come across as stingy, but £5 for a cup of coffee. It's only a few years ago you could go to McDonald's, get a Big Mac, chips, and a drink for a £5. That's now the cost of a cup of coffee. Normalised. Look out for it. You'll see it. You'll see it everywhere. In every walk of life, things become normalised. That which once was weird, bizarre, outlandish, outrageous, ridiculous, unacceptable, perfectly normal now. Perfectly normal. Dan is on his way out. Have a great day, lads, and see you all tomorrow. Yes, I think that would be a good time. I do feel like there's a lot of sneezing about to happen. So, and Dad also says, stay safe and be normal. Yeah. I mean, this is probably not the best place to talk about normality, look. But yes, please, as I say, when you see some stuff, just think about it. It's not, well, some of the rules and regulations we have on site that have been introduced basically to tick a box. I'll do it because, I want to be part of the gang, and I don't want to be a pain in the arse and everything else. But that's not normal. That's not normal. Just think about it. Anyway, people, that's enough of today. I'm going to go and do something far more useful right now. Dan says, I don't go near Starbucks. I think it's to do with people watching while having a cuppa. Used to enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, back, I don't know, 3 refurbishments ago, my local Starbucks had a nice big sofa. Sit there with the double espresso, macchiato, 2 pumps of vanilla, whatever bollocks that they sell these days, and just watch people go by. I'm not paying a £5 for the privilege. I'd rather go and sit on a park bench and watch people go by and judge them accordingly. Everybody have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow for some more normality or something. Till then, have a good one.